Kemetic versus biblical view on interactions with the dead. The Kemetic views on interactions with the living and ancestors in the afterlife differ greatly from the biblical insistence on not interacting with the dead. Let's explore these differences in detail. In Kemetic beliefs, the interactions with the living and ancestors in the afterlife are seen as an integral part of their religious and cultural practices. The ancient Egyptians who followed the Kemetic tradition believed in the existence of an afterlife, where the deceased would continue their existence in a realm known as the Duat. They believed that the deceased ancestors continued to play an active role in the lives of the living, and therefore interactions with them were encouraged. The Kemetic tradition placed great importance on maintaining a strong connection between the living and the deceased. They believed that the deceased ancestors possessed wisdom, guidance, and protection, and could provide assistance to the living. The living would often seek the advice and blessings of their ancestors through rituals, prayers, and offerings. The ancestors were considered to be an important link between the living and the divine, and their intercession was seen as valuable. On the other hand, the biblical insistence on not interacting with the dead stems from the Judeo-Christian beliefs, primarily found in the Old Testament. In the Bible, there are several passages that prohibit necromancy, the practice of communicating with the dead. These passages emphasize the worship of God alone and discourage any form of communication with spirits, including deceased ancestors. The biblical perspective views interactions with the dead as a form of forbidden divination or witchcraft. It is believed that seeking guidance or assistance from the dead is a violation of God's commandments and a rejection of His sovereignty. Instead, the emphasis is placed on seeking guidance and support from God through prayer and adherence to His teachings. The prohibition against interacting with the dead in the biblical tradition is based on the belief that the dead have no conscious existence and cannot actively participate in the affairs of the living. The focus is on the present life and the relationship with the divine, rather than seeking guidance or assistance from the deceased ancestors. In summary, the Kemetic views on interactions with the living and ancestors in the afterlife emphasize a strong connection between the living and the deceased, with the belief that the deceased ancestors can provide guidance and assistance. In contrast, the biblical insistence on not interacting with the dead is rooted in the prohibition of necromancy and the belief that seeking guidance from the deceased goes against the worship of God alone. This has been a Sharri Plaza presentation.